Hey, what's up, everybody? My name is Walid Shaya.
I'm Kavita Raj.
And this is Lights,
Camera,
and Conversation. How are you, Kavita?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm so excited for today. It's episode 3.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes. Episode 3. Very exciting. Gosh, love and support is being felt. And
yes, thank you
excited.
all for tuning in each week.
Yes.
Thank you for liking and subscribing and giving us a rating on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or even on YouTube if you're watching this with video as well. We'd love to hear from you.
Yes, absolutely. We'd love to see comments on all our social media. So very appreciative
TikTok
of that.
and Instagram, say hi. We can't wait to hear from you.
Yes.
So today we're going to be talking about something Kavita and I are so extremely passionate about, diversity.
Yes, very personal to us is representation in the business.
Yes, let's cheers to that as we dive in. Cheers.
Cheers to that.
Cheers, those of you at home drinking along. You hear our cups clink, we're cheersing here.
Yes.
All right, let's begin at the beginning. Diversity, let's start with in music, and then we'll jump into film, TV.
Yeah, so the topic was something that was so close to our hearts. You and I have talked about it so many times when we've hung out. This industry is truly in need of more representation.
Absolutely.
In the music business, we're seeing that there's a lot of openness to, including so many different people with different looks and, colors and ethnicities and backgrounds to be sharing their culture, their music, their expression of the art. And I think we're seeing that happen. It's time to galvanize on that energy going around, but there just has to be more. There has to be more of that acceptance in the mainstream.
Yes, and I think we're seeing it from some artists. For example, Sam Smith.
Yes.
If you think about Unholy, the beginning music, the melody, some of the instruments, especially the violins, some of the synth, it sounds very Middle Eastern. It sounds very Arabian, perhaps even some Bollywood flair in it.
1000%, yeah.
And so I love that mainstream artists are pulling from that. Beyonce is known for a lot of her rips, which follow the Arabic music scale, which is so interesting. And she pulls a lot of, melodies as well from Arabic music, which I think is so cool. But now to see the leading players actually be Middle Eastern or South Asian or, whatever, is diverse and new to the scene, I think is so important.
And then if we delve deeper into diversity, there is so much, right, within the definition of the word diversity. So it just is a vast, a world that we can be more inclusive of people that need to be in all of these platforms sharing their art.
Even within our own communities or even within specific communities that might be diverse, they might need diversity within those communities, right? So for example, perhaps in Middle Eastern film, there aren't a lot of gay characters, if any. I don't know if it's even happened in the Middle East. I think America is, setting trends with only a handful of films that are out with Middle Eastern gay leads, right? And we'll get into, diversity more in film, but I do want to hear, Kavita, what's it like to be a person of color today in the music industry? What's it like to come with a unique sound from my culture? And how do I infuse it into my brand?
Absolutely. I think people want to see people that look like them in the arts. There is something magical about going to the theater and seeing a film and watching somebody that looks like you. There is something incredible about watching the Grammys or the Oscars and seeing an artist that looks like you winning an award or even just being nominated. It is all just incredible. So let's start there. I think that it's happening. There is individual artists, individual actors and musicians that are doing great things, great work in their field. But as a collective, I think we need to see
I'll give you an example, Kavita. There's Tyler Perry Studios, right? But where's the Middle Eastern studio? Where's the Bollywood studio that's in the States and prominent here on this coast? Where is the Latin studio? And I'm sure there are production companies that work on diverse content, that work for underrepresented voices, but why are they not mainstream?
I think in quantity, again, there are so many talented artists of color They just need roles for them.
So let's go to the beginning.
Opportunities.
This is what we talked about before too.
Yep.
It starts in the writer's room. It starts with the
Yes.
creators. It starts with the producers. It starts with the canvas. And what we need to say and put our foot down is this canvas needs color.
Yes.
And I think that's the bottom line. And when those opportunities exist, when you're maybe booking a concert and you're the booker and you leave slots for diverse artists, for artists of color, for artists that may be queer, for artists that may have a disability and a unique, skill to share still and talent. I think that's so exciting. Same when writing films, writing roles for underrepresented artists, marginalized people, I think is so important to have their voice heard. And, there is another thing too, which I'd love to hear about from the music sense, but sometimes when it comes to writing stories for underrepresented communities, it is a little discomforting and doesn't come off as authentic when a person from a different community is writing that story. So finding ways to collaborate.
Yeah, I was going to say, so Hamilton comes to mind, right?
Hamilton, okay.
It really broke barriers with casting.
Yes.
It was a story about what happened in history in a predominantly, white culture.
Correct. With our founding fathers.
With our founding fathers.
Yes.
And it was written by a person of Hispanic origin.
Lin-Manuel, love him.
And cast with artists of all backgrounds.
Yes.
So it just,
it was colorblind casting at its finest.
Exactly. So,
yes.
And that worked.
It worked. There's a
worked
reason it won Best Musical. There's a reason it's on Disney Plus. There's a reason it's so popular and hyped.
Did it work as a one-off example, as something that will just happen once in a while because it's so radical?
I think it's the same reason people love Rodgers and Hammerstein, Cinderella with Brandy and Whitney Houston and Whoopi Goldberg.
Right.
I mean, if you remember that film, it's colorblind casting. The prince is Asian, Whoopi's black, Cinderella's black, the stepsisters are white. It's such a mix. And people love that. But I think what happened with Hamilton, and this is where the music comes in, is it exposed a new era of theater goers. Mm-hmm. It opened up doors to the theater to people that maybe listen to hip hop and don't listen to Broadway, that listen to rap pop and don't listen to Broadway, and they found a new home in the theater. And my hope is that they discover other shows as well and really continue to promote the theater and live events culture, because it really does fill your soul and it's so exciting. And I love that Hamilton was a gateway for a lot of people.
Hamilton was. And the other question is, so that's one thing, right? The other question is, suppose the auditionees were like of different, let's just say different ethnicities, different backgrounds. How does someone who's casting right now, say for, I'm just going to say mainstream platforms like Netflix or Amazon, is it okay to have, like, say, an Asian actress who is with a white father and a African-American mother? The pressure that the children have to look the same as the parent, or the parent has to look like the child. I understand that it's stories, and the visionary wants the story to be a certain way.
Right.
But what about the people that come into audition? Are we going to pick the best artist for the role? Or is it someone that looks...
Yes, because you might be the best for the role, but you don't look like you're the sibling, or you don't look like that's really your mom or dad. Yeah. But who's to say? Especially these days, not only do we have interracial families, but let's not forget we have families with adopted family members. We have families with step-siblings and half-siblings. We have friends that become family who might not have family.
Absolutely.
And that's the reality, and these are your relatives. So I think we're also in such a new age where connecting and meeting and crossing the world is easier than ever before. So the definition of family has also changed.
So I think casting should reflect that, and it shouldn't be that difficult for people of all backgrounds to be able to have an opportunity to be seen, to be heard, to be represented. And
Absolutely.
if that continues to be the case, I think people just need to start writing for people that they want to see on screen.
Yes.
So I think if more people did that, and more, production houses was, kind of open.
And I want to add something and stop you right there. Before we do that, before more people write roles for minorities or for underrepresented communities, and because this is the bottom line, as a Middle Eastern actor, filmmaker myself, I've had to step up and start writing roles. And I'm developing a feature film right now, which is so exciting, all centered around Middle Eastern cast and culture.
So exciting.
And it's going to be huge. But what I do know is this. My parents never told me to go be a writer or be a producer or be an actor. So I'm excited because this person sitting next to me here that you guys are listening to, my bestie Kavita, she's a parent and she has told her 2 daughters to follow their dreams in the arts.
Yeah.
And you've allowed your daughters to study in the arts and to go to school for it. Now, I was lucky I got to go to college and get my BFA in my field in performance. What I think is really interesting, though, is, you know, my parents didn't have the tools to really push me forward to pursue it at a level to where it might come more organically from the ground up.
Yeah.
So it doesn't just start with us now today saying, I'm going to become, you know, I'm going to add a writing component to my skills as an adult.
Correct.
I think it can also be nurtured way back. So those of you listening who have little cousins or a sibling or a friend that is into the arts, you know, keep that spark alive in them, keep inspiring them, because they can be the next Shonda Rhimes.
Exactly.
Right?
Oh my God, love that.
Yeah.
It is heartwarming to hear that the journey doesn't have to stop because you didn't book a role or you just kept getting passed up for opportunities. The journey continues with you becoming a creator. And, you know, it seems like a common knowledge and everybody was like, yeah, I know that. But, you know, I have a writer's block. Where do I go? How do I continue? There are so many tools for that. Someone like Walid is such a great guide in, you know, in the film and TV and whole acting world, like how to, you know, kind of overcome that block and that piece of the journey and continue. But as a singer, for example, in the music world, it is about knocking on those doors, collaborating with people, connecting in the human relationship.
Back to that
people,
word.
In the performing arts, one little secret is that I think people want to work with people they like to work with.
100%.
Right? And then, so on top of having talent, if there were 2 people with equal talent, you're going to work with the person that you enjoy working with.
Yes.
Because there are so many talented people.
Well, that's why people work with their friends, right? So think about it. Those of you that watch shows by, for example, Ryan Murphy.
Right.
Whether it's American Horror Story or it's, you know, one of his other anthologies, the Hollywood one he made, for example, he casts the same people.
Yeah.
And they're not always the same story or same, you know, production piece. It's just his company and his team, and he loves working with his friends.
Yeah.
And how exciting to be in that circle and community.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so important to collaborate and to find communities.
Yes.
You will diversify communities, and then your community is stronger because of, you know, the power of each person.
Absolutely.
You're stronger with others, and so through that you are able to then make a change and step it up so that the bigger communities, the community at large, can hear your voice. For example, what I really love and I want to give a shout out to is the Manasa or the MENA Diversity Committee at the Writers Guild. They make sure in the Writers Guild that writers from the Middle East, South Asia, you know, our region, are heard and represented in film, TV. And additionally, the MENA Arts Advocacy Coalition, I really, really appreciate what they're doing to make sure the landscape of film TV is, you know, equal. It's an equal playing field. This is so interesting, Kavita. This year alone, there were 0 MENA leads. MENA means Middle East, North Africa. There were 0 MENA leads in the top theatrical releases for films per the UCLA Diversity Report. And we can say that it's fairly consistent at 1.1% cast shares globally. So globally, MENA characters appear 1.1% in film projects. And the MENA Arts Advocacy Coalition is here to help change that. Please, please, please find them online. If you're a Middle Eastern or South Asian actor, you can join their free database as well. Their website is simply maacdatabase.com. Check them out. But I think, you know, going back to our topic and diversity, you can team up with organizations like this to help support their cause. I know this organization that I just mentioned, MAAC, I partner with them with my studio. We partner every spring. We produce the Manasa Diversity Showcase, and it allows an opportunity for performers of Manasa descent to perform a 1-minute monologue online that we do a screening of, and we have casting directors, agents, managers, producers that we invite from New York, LA, and all the major region markets volunteer and come watch the stream of about 80 Minasa performers doing a monologue. And for a lot of these performers, if not most of them, they've never been seen by some of these top officials from companies that have cast everything you're seeing on your TV screens today to Broadway, you know, to music and more. And it's great because through that, some of our actors get signed. They get meetings with agents that attended. They get an audition for an opportunity as an afterthought from that, and then hopefully they book that. You know, they get the connection, and that's what I tell everyone. Even if you don't always find an instant reward from putting yourself out there, whether it's on social media or through an event like this, remember you're getting the connection, and it's how you nurture it. So it's important we really lean in on these types of organizations in our communities and be part of a community and collaboration.
Absolutely, and I think that also as more stories are being written, more creators are coming forward with stories that are inclusive, that are telling the stories of people of color, people of these different cultures, you know, their heritages, their history. Once these stories are being written and being told, casting will also open up, music will open up. You know, we had a recent opportunity to kind of submit for this huge Hollywood movie that is going to be set in, like scenes are going to be set in parts of South Asia and the Middle East. And so the music they were requesting was with sounds, undertones of at least the, you know, kind of Middle Eastern and South Asian sounds.
Yes.
And it was incredible to be able to have that opportunity to at least submit for it. And that is a journey, it's a process. But, you know, just to have that opportunity was great. It's competitive. There's a lot of artists. That is why we need more creators that will include this abundant talent that is out there just waiting to be cast and waiting to work.
Absolutely. So, you know, I'm a man of action, you know that. So what are some things we can do if we're a musician? And I'll think of some as a filmmaker where we can promote diversity. One thing we've already scratched off is creating our own work and being part of a community. But what can I do today, right now?
I was going to say, coming back to collaboration is very important to seek out. So say you're a musician, it's very important to seek out producers that have these interesting sounds that you want to incorporate in your music. So whatever it is, you know, if you want to incorporate, you know, South Asian sounds, you know, Indian sounds, Middle Eastern sounds, South American music, you know, so many other cultures, you know, just anything you can imagine. Diversity is you reaching out across the table and finding a producer that would work with you, songwriters that would write stories about those, you know, incorporating that culture that goes with the sound, and collaborating and putting out the product there, and tapping into leaders in the music business. There are amazing organizations, you know, like, you know, Gold House and stuff that are like so great about, you know, helping put a spotlight on Asian American artists, for example. There are similar such organizations that work with African American artists, that work with South American artists, that work with, you know, Middle Eastern artists. It is very important to reach out to those organizations and send them your information and say, I could use your support in highlighting my music and highlighting my work, or I would appreciate your support in connecting me with other artists that want to work with people like me. The Grammys have recently started such initiatives, and it's amazing to see the Recording Academy take that step towards wanting to be inclusive and, you know, open up the kind of their network for like artists of all backgrounds.
And I've, you know, seen this, you know, on the rise and become so important because I've seen diversity shape my studio for performing arts. For the past couple of years now, we host seasonal mixers, and it's for all entertainment professionals. But ultimately, what I noticed is the crowd at these events is so diverse. And it's really a reflection of me, my friends, my community, and I'm very proud of that, including you there in the crowd and behind the scenes. And I've noticed industry professionals attend this event, especially casting directors, and I get feedback that, hey, I love coming here. I meet so many unique actors. I meet people with looks that I don't find elsewhere. You know, I love being part of this community. And that's been really important to me to keep consistent with and to, you know, to take as something that was meant to be and to follow that.
Yeah, and one of the things is, talking of action and steps you can take is listening to what your fans are asking for, listening to what your followers or even just your supporters, what are they commenting? What are they saying that they want to see you do? In the experience of my girls in the music journey, the amount of comments they've gotten saying, thank you so much for being the artist you are. Thank you for giving me the permission to unapologetically express myself and my talent, my artistry. And I think that has encouraged them to create more music, to make, more minority communities feel heard, feel seen, and feel included and represented. And that is such a powerful feeling and gratifying feeling. You just feel like fulfilled sleeping at the end of the day, knowing that you've kind of really made some people feel like, I feel so great when I listen to your music or watch your video.
Yes.
So it's
absolutely. We need more people like that.
Yeah, it is a great feeling. And I think just more people feeling empowered to be able to do that will just keep pushing the boundaries and opening more doors.
Yes, and in film, TV, I see people doing that. I mentioned Tyler Perry. I know some people think his movies are cheesy, perhaps, but I'm really commenting more on the empire he's built.
Of course,
and the opportunities
absolutely.
he's given Black artists, I think is incredible.
Huge.
And artists that aren't Black as well, that got their rise in acting from being in his films. I also think of Eva Longoria. She's now a producer-director wearing many hats. She's working, from the script and the ground up, bringing people of Latino descent into her films and leveling the playing field with them. There are so many incredible people like that. Shonda Rhimes, of course. But the list only goes on. But it's still not long enough, I think, is the important thing. Because it's a big space, and I think we need to remember that. The community at large.
Exactly. And it is delving into mainstream, and that's important that it should be doing that. And I know people that, I have worked with in the past that were like very hesitant to be like, oh my God, but this isn't the movie of the year kind of movie. This is more of an international movie. It belongs in that category. You know what? They're trying to break that barrier and trying to be the movie of the year, the song of the year, the mainstream moment. And why not?
Why not? And I think that's a great segue to our pop culture moment to talk about the song.
Exactly.
That just
my God,
won.
how exciting was that, right? The Golden Globes, the
Oscars
was a South Indian movie called RRR, and the song is a Telugu song called Naatu Naatu. Telugu is a language from a state in South India, and it is widely spoken, and it is just so rich in culture and heritage. And for that language to be represented, that song to be represented in such a huge global platform was beyond exciting. Really made my day. Notwithstanding any of the kind of struggle that some of the audience had with the dancers at the actual award ceremony not being properly represented. They didn't have exactly South Asian dancers or South Indian dancers or Indian dancers even on stage. But notwithstanding that, the fact that the song, we're talking about just the fact that the song itself won, and that is one step in representation. So I'm just talking about the fact that that itself happened. Could we do better? Always.
Yes.
But that happened, and that was so great.
Right. Yes, exactly. And I think it's so important. It reminds me of when I watched Aladdin on Broadway.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
You've heard the story, Kavita, and it was years ago when it first came out on Broadway. I was still living in New York, and I was very excited. You can imagine why. I was going to watch Aladdin, and as a Middle Eastern guy who grew up, watching Aladdin and feeling at home with it, I was super excited. I watched the show, and honestly, I could not see one person on stage that was of my descent. So that was the first thing. A lot of the cast members, they were all incredibly talented, but they were all mixed. All right, they were mixed. I believe there was black and white mixed actors. There were I believe like Filipino and South Asian actors.
Sure.
So it was mixed. It was diverse in its own way, but it was not Middle Eastern, right?
That's a missed opportunity.
The opening numbers, Arabian Nights. The director was a white male, and it was set and choreographed in Bollywood. So, Kavita, you've taught taught Bollywood dance,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Bollywood dance and, Middle Eastern, Mediterranean dance,
Yes.
it's different.
Yeah.
We both use hips. We both have a lot of
course.
arms.
Yeah.
But it's very
And
different.
there's a lot of love and respect for
Yes.
for both cultures. Like the I'm sure Bollywood, in definition, Bollywood is like the Indian film industry draws a lot and is so inspired by, Arabic, music and dance.
Yes.
And that's different. But for a story that is supposed to be about
Right.
one culture set in one place, for it to be kind of mixed in a little bit with all of this leaves one feeling wanting, like you did.
Perhaps a director of color from the Middle East. So that happened. And then I thought about it, and it came to me, the fact of the matter is the story of Aladdin's actually originally, if I'm not mistaken, set in the Orient. All right. It's originally the flying carpets, the Oriental carpets. It's actually not even Middle Eastern.
Okay.
It's not even Bollywood. But the fact of the matter
I
is,
did not know that.
the Disney rendition of it
Yeah.
opens with Arabian Nights. They look Middle Eastern. They wear shawls the same way we do. It's very Persian, Mediterranean in its, way. And that representation was not there. So I enjoyed the show. The genie was hilarious. The cast was super talented. The special effects were awesome. But it was not authentic.
Yes.
It was not authentic. And I think the question is, should the best actor get it? Or should the... a more authentic actor get it if they're not as talented. And guess what? I spoke to the casting director about this. Mm-hmm. She's a lovely person. And I had the pleasure of working at a studio where she often was at. Mm-hmm. And I had a conversation with her in the break room about this exact experience. And she said, Walid, we did a national search for this show. We went all over the country and we looked for actors of Middle Eastern descent and beyond.
Okay.
And this is what we came up with. But the bottom line is, we're not really there in masses because, back to what I shared initially, our parents didn't tell us to go be singers and dancers and actors. There aren't that many of us. So even the ones that there are, well, they're not as good as the rest. Well, that to me means instead of casting others, perhaps Disney, for example, could have done a month boot camp and an intensive training program and train those almost Middle Eastern actors to be at Broadway level, push them to that, and then they can perform a more authentic version. I know Disney has the resources. We don't even need to argue that.
And we'd be surprised at how little would have been needed to do to get some of these super talented, like in this case, Middle Eastern descent actors to get to that point, right? It is, I think, Disney has been also known to take a little bit of creative liberty in the 80s, 90s with stories that they said about, all of these different cultures. And so it has been something that is a work in progress.
Yes, absolutely.
And I think we're all at a stage now where there is so much more awareness and conversation about representation. And I think people are really feeling it. It's simmering, it's bubbling, and people are really wanting to be represented the right way. And authentic is the way to go. And I think that production houses need to take notice of this, and artists need to be included the right way.
Yes, and thanks to social media especially, fans now are calling out films and television shows and music for what they are.
Yes.
They're canceling people. Cancel culture is a whole other conversation, which I'm sure we'll have soon enough.
Yes, and another conversation that we need to have is the cultural barriers growing up, right?
Yes,
upbringing
we'll
and cultural barriers.
that.
And I think that I've had so many requests from parents of artists my age and children, artists, asking me to talk about this topic because they really want to send a message.
Yes.
So
yes, absolutely. It's critical. So, if we've gathered anything from our topic on diversity today, it's to continue to put yourself out there, fearlessly, authentically, to collaborate, to find the communities that you need to be involved in, and to try to run with it. And from there, take it a day at a time, a person at a time, and we will change the scene together.
Absolutely. And diversity and inclusion doesn't stop at just color and race. It continues on to your, sexual orientation, ability, all kinds of,
Absolutely.
things.
Intricacies.
So many different nuances within inclusivity, and I think we need to be mindful of that as creators and be more open. And just, as you said, I think if there are people auditioning, we just need to open up the mind and be like, okay, let's just go forward and see how it is to include some of these artists into our script.
I love that.
Yeah.
And so we'll move forward with that vibe.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. Let's finish the S1E and Kavita and diversify our palette with something fresh next. Cheers.
Oh my gosh.
Thank you all for tuning in.
Thank you.
Make sure to come back next week.
Yes.
Every Tuesday there's a new episode. You can also find us on what socials?
Oh my gosh, everything, right? So we're on YouTube, we're on Instagram, we're on TikTok.
Yes.
And you can listen to the podcast anywhere that you find your podcast, Spotify, iTunes, so on and so forth.
Yes. And be sure to subscribe, give us a 5-star rating and show some love and tell your friends. We can't wait to see you next week.
Yes.
Till then, have a great day.
Yes. Thank you.
See ya. Hey, be sure to like, subscribe, and follow on Instagram and TikTok. We love interacting. Also, the content in this podcast episode is provided for general informational purposes only. By listening to our episode, which we love, you understand that no information contained in this episode should be construed as advice from Lights Camera Conversation or our individual authors, hosts, or guests. Nor is it intended to be a substitute for research on any subject matter. We always encourage you to do your research. Reference to any specific product or entity does not constitute an endorsement or recommendation by Lights Camera Conversation. The views expressed by speakers are their own, and their appearance on our program does not imply an endorsement of them or any entity that they represent. Thanks for listening, and until next time, have a great day.